everybody doing today? Welcome to another edition of the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. My name is Zach Starr. We have a very exciting show for all of you today. Thanks again for everyone that's been tuning in for pretty much the entire week. Almost there, Gavin. We're on Thursday. We got one more day this week. We got a little Q&A session tomorrow. We're going to have some questions asked to us soon. We have two exciting guests that will be joining us on the show as well today. A lot of exciting stuff to look forward to. Gavin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Star. Yesterday got a little heated, but hey, it's all right. I'm really a big believer in not LeBron, excuse me, Michael Jordan almost got me, and tomorrow's gonna be a good one because we're gonna bring that back. But today's even better, I promise that. How about you? How you doing today?
We have a lot of exciting things going on. So let's get started with it. We're going to kick it off with the essential question of the day. We're talking about who was the best NBA player before the hiatus. Gavin, I'll let you go first on this one.
You can start.
In March, the season had actually been put on a hiatus. It resumes in late July. So, yep, I'll go first, actually. And so, in my opinion, yes, LeBron James, I think, was the best player coming into hiatus. We're not discussing the GOAT here, Gavin. We're just discussing the best player in the hiatus.
Just a little bit.
And so the reason that I'm bringing that up is pretty simple. Look at his past few games. Went off against the Clippers. Remember that Clippers win and the Bucks win. Over both those times, they were able to come out and they were able to claim a victory. And I get it. There's a lot of other players out there that are very talented. But right now, who means the most to their team? Who is the best player? Who's playing at the best level? Get to mention it's his, 17th, 18th year in the league. I'm going to go with LeBron James.
Well, I'm going to obviously disagree because, for disclaimer, I do not hate LeBron. I feel like he is a great NBA player, but he's not GOAT status, so that's not for today. For me, it's Giannis. You got to take a look at what Giannis is doing. For first off, they have the best record in the whole entire NBA, and he means a lot to that team. Whether vice versa, let's say LeBron, misses games, they still got Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis can win games by himself. But you look at Giannis, if Giannis goes down, which I hope he doesn't, but if Giannis goes down, who do they have to rely on? Chris Middleton? That's not enough. Giannis is a key part to that Milwaukee offense. He draws the people in and finds open shooters when he kicks out. And sometimes he doesn't need to kick out because he's just that of a freak of a nature. Giannis's numbers, he's not leading the league in scoring. Obviously, James Harden does because he doesn't pass. But Giannis is a really great piece, or not a piece. He is the piece of Milwaukee, and I feel like if they lose him, the whole season's over. So he's probably he is the best player before the hiatus.
All right, that's definitely an interesting take to say the least. I still think that the Lakers aren't as good without LeBron James. Remember, Anthony Davis was hurt for a few games this year, something not uncommon with a big man. And so when he was out, he had no problem beating the Pelicans. They had no problem beating the Dallas Mavericks a few times. I do recall that. So I'm sticking with LeBron James here. And so here's kind of a sidebar question too. If LeBron and Giannis face off in the NBA Finals, which player shows out the most for their team?
Giannis, easily. I feel like
that one I'll agree with you on. There's no really Chris Middleton's obviously a good complementary piece, but not that second-tier superstar. I still would take the Lakers in 6 games.
Chris Middleton's not a scrub. Okay, Chris Middleton's not a scrub. I just want to make that a great point. But Giannis is a freak of nature. There's no stopping Giannis. When you think you have Giannis beat, he makes a 3. So now you got to play up, and then he can run in. He'll go up while in his presence on defense is felt. I feel like that when Giannis has the ball in his hands, the game is under his control at all times. So I think in a 7-game series in the NBA Finals versus the Bucks, Giannis would show out the most. Will they win? That's a debate for another day.
Yes, and those are definitely 2 separate debates. Giannis is more valuable to his team than LeBron is. I'm not saying that LeBron's not. Obviously, for me, I think that LeBron's the best player in the NBA, but he does have other pieces. He has more around him than Giannis does. But are you saying that this year Giannis is unstoppable? Because last year he was up 2-0 against the Raptors and dropped 4 straight to Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors. So, he was pretty stoppable at that point. Do you think it's different this year, or did you refer to that as since last year, since he's been one of the elite players in the NBA?
I feel like it's different this year. First off, I want to say Kawhi Leonard's defense is the best defense I want to say ever seen, but in this era, in this year's basketball, like right now, this has got to be one of the best defenders we know of. He has a lot of.
Right now, we're having some quick technical difficulties. We're going right now.
Can you hear me, sir? But I feel like Giannis has the keys this
Down
year to keep
the
going.
section. Who do you take?
Hmm?
You there,
Yeah, I'm
Gavin?
right here.
All right, great. I'm gonna pull you out and bring you back in. We are having some video problems on my end, but yeah. So the next conversation we are having is in regards to the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers. So we're gonna bring up that item now. We're gonna get discussing on that. So let's get some talks in the chat. We're gonna talk about getting the Los Angeles Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers. In my opinion, I'm taking the Lakers. I think that the Lakers are a much more experienced team. They have guys like Danny Green in there, Rajon Rondo, Avery Bradley, JaVale McGee, and plenty more. So Gavin, let's get some of your thoughts on that as far as the Clippers and the Lakers are concerned.
Well, I think in a 7-game series, it's going to be the Clippers. Obviously, the Clippers. The one thing in the playoffs, and we said this about the Sixers multiple times, is the bench. Teams that majority times win the NBA finals or make a deep run is because they have a great bench. You look or a great roster together, and you look at the Clippers, and you got Paul George, you got Kawhi Leonard, you got Patrick Beverly, you got Montez Harrell, Zubac, who I'm not really sold on. You got Lou Will coming off the bench, the sixth man for back-to-back years, and they're the really great defensive team. They're like they can guard anybody. You know, Kawhi, Paul George. Paul George can take on any guard. Like they're just defensively everywhere, and their bench is really good too. Where Landry Shamet can off the bench. They have they got this new guy. Oh, they got one of the Morris brothers too. I
Yeah,
don't know
Morris. Yep.
both Morrises are in LA. That's a little bit scary. But if you look at how the Clippers are built, they're built better than the Lakers. They have more pieces and more role players to support the two main stars, which are Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Where you look at the Clippers, or when you look at yeah, the Lakers, Kalen, they do have a bench, but they're not winning the finals because I don't believe their stars can show up on any given day. Everybody always talks about how LeBron always just do the extra, but if you look at the Clippers, they took the Warriors to 6 games. Kevin Durant had problems with Pat Beverly in that series too. So I think the Clippers win in 6 games versus the Lakers if they were to square off.
All right, I'm going to definitely disagree with you on that. I think that definitely guys like Kawhi and Paul George can show up. I don't think that they do match the experience of LeBron James and then obviously Anthony Davis, who is a little bit on the younger end as far as some of the experience is concerned. But like I mentioned, Danny Green, it's about the role players. Would you rather have Danny Green or Lou Will, or would you have Patrick Beverly in that situation? Obviously, they do have some respectable experience, but Danny Green's been a part of the Spurs franchise. He's been a part of the Raptors championship run. And so for me, JaVale McGee as well with Golden State. So I think that I definitely would have to take the Los Angeles Clippers or Los Angeles Lakers in this instance because of those reasons.
Well, I think a big key is defense wins championships. We could say that in NFL. We could say that in basketball. We probably say that in another sport too. This Clippers team is so defensively good that they just match up well anybody. And if you think, and if Kawhi is already taken, and then you got Patrick Beverly as a guard that can just gets in anyone, and he gets in everyone's head and just destroys defensively, shuts you down. I don't think the Lakers have enough to. I mean, in 3 games they played before the last game obviously got canceled, the Clippers are up 2-3, 2-1 on the series in 3 games. LeBron now, and the first opening night, the Lakers had full strength. They had AD and LeBron, and Kawhi, and it was just Kawhi, and Kawhi won. So the next game, I think they had Paul George, and the Clippers win that one, and then obviously LeBron got the last laugh before the hiatus. So I'm rocking with the Clippers. I'm rocking with the Clippers. I believe the Clippers have a little bit more when it comes to role players. Star players is different. I think the Lakers have more star power, but role players, you gotta give it to the Clippers, man.
Well, you got to think about it. If you look at the average box score of an NBA deep playoff run, talking about conference final and final, you're only going 2 to 3 players deep in your bench. Remember, the Philadelphia Sixers only touched Mike Scott and James Ennis last year. The question is, which top 7 is better? And so for me, I think it's the Los Angeles Lakers. I really trust their top 5 more than the top 5 on the Clippers. You do have Lou Will and Marcus Morris coming off the bench, or Montrezl Harrell, depending on how they set that up, with Zubac starting at the center position. And then for the Lakers, Avery Bradley, I mean, Kyle Kuzma's obviously up and down, not really the biggest role player. They also have the other Morris brother there as well, which is a good fit. But, I mean, just take a look at LeBron against some of these teams. I mean, it takes it takes substantially good 3-point shooting to really beat them, and that was the dynasty of the Golden State Warriors, and we discussed that in great detail yesterday. But I feel the Lakers are definitely the team that have that experience, and that's what's going to propel them if they do get to maybe a Game 6, Game 7.
Well, you talk about experience, and you got to think about Anthony Davis been in the playoffs, what, two times? 3 or 2?
With the Pelicans twice he went, right?
Yeah, and then obviously LeBron in his playoff history. But you got to remember, there's a guy in San Antonio and a guy that came from Indiana and Oklahoma City that went to the playoffs. And Kawhi Leonard's fresh off a championship too. So the experience is kind of equal. You know, Pat Bev has some experience in the playoffs with James Harden, Lou Will, same thing, because they both came from the same team, Houston. The thing is that separates the Clippers and Lakers is the Clippers, Lou Williams, they have people on the bench that could just explode for 20 any night, 25, or Lou Will can give you 40. You know, that's the case right there. And then sometimes it takes in the playoffs, it just takes that one guy. You know what I mean? Like that's the I want to say that's the difference in between LA and LAL and LAC.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you got to talk about that experience. Who's taking the final shot? I think LeBron's been there definitely a few more times than Kawhi Leonard.
Well, I think who takes? I mean, it's just the dagger. I mean, those are 3 words that still haunt a lot of Sixers fans to this day. And
that is true.
And
I mean, that's one time though. Take a look at all the. I mean, Kawhi's been with the Spurs. He beat the Heat respectively. He's now with the Clippers. He was with the Raptors last year. Beat up an injury-prone Warriors team last year.
Uh-huh.
But no, it'll be interesting. I think, in my opinion, the key matchup of that game is not necessarily LeBron versus Kawhi. I think it's actually Anthony Davis versus Paul George, and I see Anthony Davis showing up more than Paul George.
I mean, I like Anthony Davis. You know, I have no problem with LeBron. I do, actually. That's a lie, but I don't. But I just think when it comes down at the end of the game, you know, Paul, I think defensively there's going to be 2 keys at the end of the game: defense and who's going to hit the final shot. And right now, it looks like I'm leaning more towards the Clippers because they got both ways. You never know. Lou Will can hit a final shot too. Paul George, he can hit one. Paul George should have won a game 1 versus Cleveland one year, but his teammate didn't give him the ball. Whether that goes in or not, I don't know, but it's Paul George. And Kawhi Leonard, obviously, is just the dagger. He can hit shots too. So we just got to go from there and see. It's going to be a good one now. It'll be a good one.
Definitely. No, we do remember that game winner that Paul George had against the Sixers as an Oklahoma City Thunder. So let's get on to the next topic now. We've definitely talked about that, a lot more to continue as the season resumes. We'll be on here all summer, so plenty of conversation to have now. In the NBA, there is a growing fear among some players that they don't want to go to the bubble environment of Orlando. A little bit of a background on it. The NBA proposed this. It seems like it was approved. Everything's going well. But Adrian Wojnarowski has been recently reporting that some players have been telling him and have been reporting to anonymous sources that they're not interested in going. They don't want to leave their families. Some of them feel like it's not worth it to go if they're the 6, 7, or 8 seed for some of these teams, even though the Sixers are a 6 seed, maybe more in the West, but especially those 7, 8 seed spots. Some of these players don't really feel like it's worth it, yet to mention some of those other teams that are on the bubble or maybe out. So, Gavin, I'll start with you. In or out of Orlando?
Well, I'm out. I understand these guys. Look, these guys have families. Some of them have kids. You know, you talk about players and families, and LeBron has three kids, right? 3, and to be told that, hey, I gotta leave you guys for a good amount of months, and
yes, at least until October.
Yeah, and for one, that's not fair to the players, and that's not fair to the families either. And you can only bring 2 others or 3 people. I think 2, including yourself. And to be told, and it's like when you go to Orlando, you can't even go on the amusement park rides. You're basically stuck. It's like an island. You have no control of what's going on. The NBA controls you, what you're doing. And I wouldn't blame guys that saying, hey, you know what? I'm out. If I can't be around my family, and I can't do anything around the resort, then I'm out. But I do also believe too, if I'm Adam Silver, I have to realize they have a great point. They have a great point, and they shouldn't be punished if they don't want to go. You know, maybe you have a newborn at home and you need to be with your partner to take care of it. Maybe you don't know what goes on. So let me ask you this question. So how would you feel if you were told you had to leave your family for 3 months, 3-4 months?
I think it would really depend on how much of an opportunity I have to go and get a ring. That's because if you're playing NBA basketball, it's obviously your passion. You care about it a lot.
Yeah.
And so depending on the different circumstances, it's tough. And so I understand that side of it. But for me, if you're an NBA player, if you're getting paid to play the game, I understand you've worked very hard and I respect that. However, in my opinion, you have a due diligence to the society, to sports fans, to your team to show up in Orlando. I understand the situation. I understand that the virus is out there. Fortunately, according to a lot of statistics, this isn't as bad as some were initially reporting. That's not an excuse to overlook it. And that's why the NBA has taken such steps that they've done to help prevent the spread during their time in Orlando. And props to Adam Silver. Gavin, you and I have talked about this earlier in the week. Adam Silver is a tremendous commissioner. He's done a great job. He understands the players. He talks to the players. He understands them more than any other commissioner, I would argue.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If your commissioner is working so hard for that and considering the other factors, shouldn't you respect that? Shouldn't you do by your teammates and show up in Orlando?
Well, yeah. Well, like I said, me and you, we both say that Adam Silver is great. But, Kayla, I want to say this, though. Yes, you leave for your family for away games, but you do come back. You know you're coming back. Like, this is like a worst case, your road trip is like a week and a half, maybe. But you're talking about months on hand. Like, months on hand. That's a long time. And it's not like you can go back and forth. And if they would be like, all right, well, you can still go around the resort. They're like, no, you're right here. This is it. This is all you can do. I do applaud Adam Silver because if this is true, I did see a thing where they're not going to discipline the players that don't want to go. But I think it does come down to the opportunity. Like, you got to look at the teams in the West, like Zion. The Pelicans are behind the Trailblazers, and they start to jump the Grizzlies. So you got to look at it. Do I have a great opportunity to jump 2 teams in 8 games? You don't know because you're banking on 4 losses from each side of the spectrum, and that's not like a great chance. Now, if you're like Damian Lillard, who's, once again, we talk about who's done a lot of talking. So Damian Lillard would be like, I don't want to go. That's kind of an L on his hand. So it does come down to the opportunity you have in 8 games and also what the at-home situation is too. But Adam Silver did a great job in giving these guys opportunities, and he's not going to punish these guys for what the decision is.
No, I do agree with you on that. I think that the non-punishment is a good idea. But as a player, I always like to attack it from a humane perspective more than just worrying about discipline. I think that's a little bit irrelevant in this situation. We can agree on that. So if you're a teammate, if you're the Pelicans, you haven't been to the playoffs in a few years. Anthony Davis left. You got the first overall pick. You got a couple of new role players on your team. As a fan or as a player or as a coach, you're like, okay, it doesn't matter if we go out. We get an opportunity to play in the playoffs, which it might only be a month and a half, 2 months away from your family. You can still bring people with you, again, as a member of society who is not in the situation that they are. I really don't have a full right to speak on behalf of them. But as a teammate before, I would feel let down. I'm willing to go out there and I'd be willing to play. You can argue if you're risking your life or not, depending on the virus, but you have to give the organization props for what they're doing to help prevent the spread of the virus. And so thinking about putting that in perspective, it's really important to think about it from what are my teammates going to think? Like, what if Donovan Mitchell decides not to go? He really wouldn't have a problem with it because he's had the virus. But if a guy like Donovan Mitchell doesn't go, how is that going to affect his teammates' relationship with him? We already know the Jazz are a team divided, so maybe it wasn't the best example. But if you think about it with Scottie Pippen when he sat out, when he wasn't going to get the ball, Gavin, how did his teammates feel after that?
They were hurt. They felt disrespected. I don't want to say disrespect, but they were really hurt. And they looked at him as a leader. Michael was gone. They looked at him as a leader. And, they came back in the locker room and they addressed it. And they had a heart-on-heart conversation. He said, you know what? I'm not going to do that to you guys again. But my thing is but that's like, all right, that's in the moment. Yes, that looks really bad on Scottie Pippen's, I want to say, resume almost, like a little stain to it. But at the end of the day, that wasn't a virus. Yes, this virus doesn't kill people, but it's also like if you catch it, you're going to be sitting by yourself for a maximum 14 days.
Right, no one wants to get it. No one wants to get it. And so, continue with that.
I think it goes with the opportunity on hand, and it goes with how many people just don't care. And if you want to go back to the Jazz, I think if Donovan Mitchell wasn't the show, I don't think it wouldn't be because of the virus. I think because if he doesn't want to hit Rudy Gobert with a right hand. Look, You gave me the virus, dude. You didn't play around with it. So it wouldn't be if Donovan Mitchell said, I'm out. They're gonna be like, well, how come you already had it? It's gonna be because of Rudy Gobert. The Jazz are the most
Right, right.
divided team in the NBA right now, and I'm just speaking off of what I think, and I think you would feel the same way too. But we don't know. We just have to see. I do believe a lot of players will go, but the ones that don't go, you can't be mad at them. And on as a teammate standpoint, hopefully you guys understand. But I want to touch on the thing about teammates. It's kind of like next man up mentality almost, and it's almost like But when you're not there, like they always say, you want to go to war with your brothers, but when one brother's not there, it hurts the other one. It hurts a family. Teammates they're not teammates, they're family. When one family member doesn't go to the cookout per se, then and everybody's upset because everybody wanted to see everybody. So I can see that. I can see that point as well.
I agree. No, definitely we'll have to touch base on that. I'm curious to hear if there are some players that are going to end up speaking out more in public. It's a little bit difficult to talk about it when it is just speculation. So that covers our NBA topics of the day. We are going to shift to a topic we haven't really touched on much yet, and it is the MLB. And so we're going to be talking about this today for those who might not have been aware. Major League Baseball had their first round of the draft last night. And so 37 players went. There was 30 players. There's an additional part of the round in the final 7. And so we're going to bring in our new guest, our MLB specialist, Harry Prince, who is going to be playing baseball next year at Millersville. And so he's going to give us a little bit of a breakdown as far as the MLB, as far as having a few different guys that were picked, specifically with the Phillies too. So Harry, are you able to hear us okay? You may have to add him and rejoin him.
May have to.
Yep. Yeah. We'll give that a try, and we'll also be discussing the possibility. I know we are more than Philly sports, but we are going to talk about the Phillies as well and seeing the potential of them being a contender as well. So while we're waiting to make sure Harry can get in, all right, the Phillies did draft a high school baseball player, a pitcher directly out of high school who will be working his way in the minor league system next year. So Gavin, first we'll ask you the question, making sure that filling the holes for the Phillies. We know the pitching was a major issue last year, and so for a lot of these prospects, they are going to spend some time in the minor leagues. Hopefully, if they can make that jump up, they can see MLB action in a couple of years. So, Gavin, first, what are some of your general thoughts on selecting a pitcher in the first round?
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy to recognize what the real problem is, and it's the bullpen and the starting rotation. I will say this though, I'm also happy that they got a guy from high school, and I'm a firm believer that the NBA should go back to that. But that could be, like I said, another topic for another day. But I don't know much on this kid, but I like drafting them young because you can really build them up better than from college. You can really give them the harder book on training and hopefully get him better to where he can be a great impact on the Phillies. Our bullpen was ferocious last year, and it was horrible. We would be winning games, and I went to a game July 4th weekend where we were up versus Nationals, and then Hector Neris steps in, and we're losing in the bottom of the 9 and ruined the fireworks. It was still a great time, but the fireworks didn't have that much of a joy to it. But I do like the selection. I feel like this was a great choice, and working with Joe Girardi, whenever he does get up here, hopefully Joe Girardi can go down and meet him and work with him down there. But we have a great coach. We have 2 great coaches that I'm like a firm believer in that can hopefully get this young man to a great potential and great talent and start producing.
Right now, totally. I definitely agree with you on that. And so, I mean, one thing the Phillies have done this year was to pretty much do whatever they can to start rebuilding as far as from the pitching is concerned. For those who remember from the early 2010s, the 4 aces, we got rid of a lot of our farm systems, and we're still recovering from that, at least from what I see. And we obviously have an ace in Aaron Nola on our team, and that's really beneficial. A couple other guys we're trying to build up. I think Nick Pivetta, Zach Eflin, although their time may have already expired. But
yeah,
a couple new guys bringing in here, just trying to see what we can do to fit. I mean, it's hard to say what the biggest problem was last year. I mean, you pulled pitchers early. You did a bunch of things that really didn't go right. But, I mean, the offensive wheels fell off at the end of the year. You think of some lack of production from Reed Hoskins, who had the worst batting average in the MLB after the All-Star break. He mentioned modifying his swing. It looks like he did. Gavin, you definitely seem like you have a little bit of emotion built up from that statement on Reed Hoskins. I'm sure you want to share a little bit more on that.
Look, man, I love Reese, I really do, but I never seen someone be consistently bad every year. It's the same thing every year. You just continue. You just go up there and you just strike out. Like I know baseball is harder than what it looks like on TV, give or take. Balls are coming at you like 90 miles an hour plus 110 sometimes, or not 110, but that's exaggeration, but 100. But I just look at Reese Hoskins and I'm like, yo, are you even trying half the time? I've gone to many Phillies games and I've seen Reese Hoskins hit or done majority. Like I wouldn't say I've been to like 6 games since Reese Hoskins been up here, and 3 games he has hits in my 6 game attendance. So I would like to say I kind of want to think that the pressure's on Reese Hoskins a little bit now. He was that guy that kind of brought Harper in because I think they're like really good friends. And if you're not producing, I don't want to say this, but you got to go. Like there's people that can be brought up that might be able to produce. We could have got rid of you and got something better before people figure out you were trash. So my thinking now is what hopefully this is a year where Joe Girardi can fix Reese Hoskins and a couple other players too. I'm really excited for it. I know this is not one of the questions, but I'm really excited for Scott Kingery this year.
I agree. No, he's my super pick for this team and being that breakout star.
So let me ask you a question then, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Do you believe in the Zach Wheeler and bringing him in? Do you think he can make an impact? And are you ready to give up on Jake Arrieta just yet?
So for the first part, I think we did overpay for Zach Wheeler, but we need pitching. We need another guy to come up there among Aaron Nola to give this team some help again. I thought more of the issues were the offense wheels falling off late last year, but for that second part, Jake Arrieta, I don't know. Jake Arrieta is interesting. He's a head case for me. He's caused some issues in this locker room trying to call guys out when he's not being accountable for some of his work. And so for me, I mean, Jake Arrieta is a tough one. I'll give him one more chance with his bone spur injury last year, coming off of that, seeing how he does. But if he doesn't perform this year, I'm ready to give up on him. But I'm right now on the verge.
I was ready to give up on him when he called out Bryce Harper. You have no right to call out Bryce Harper when you're trash yourself. Look, Bryce Harper didn't have the best year last year, but he didn't have the worst year either. Bryce Harper had some magical moments, obviously the walk-off grand slam, but I've watched games with Jake Arrieta where he just was awful. The Minnesota Twins game I went to this year where he gave up back-to-back home runs as soon as I got into the stadium, and I was not happy about it. And I'm like, this is like a consistent basis where this guy is just trash. We brought him in, and when he first got here, I didn't like him that much either. I never seen Jake Arrieta have a where I can say I don't want to say great season because I know he's a little bit on the older side, but he didn't have like a oh wow, you did that type season. So I think the Phillies, I think his time here has been a little too. I think his time here has been a little too long, and I think he needs to. I don't want to say go, but we need to make something. Something needs to happen. Excuse me while I change my thing. There you go.
Right. No, I agree. And so coming off of the World Series with Chicago, I mean, you figure he'd be a good role player. So now we believe we have Harry back up. We're gonna pull him in now and get some of his general thoughts. Obviously, the two major questions. Part of that is number one, the draft, how we think it went. So, and then number two, are the Phillies a contender? Harry, we'll let you go first. Talk about the draft. What are some of your thoughts about who the Phillies picked and what potentially could happen moving forward?
Yeah, no. So the Phillies chose Mick Abel out of Jesuit High School in Oregon last night. Mick was one of the better pitchers in the 2020 class that was able to get drafted out of high school. He sits around 93 to 96, I think occasionally touching 98 and 99. So he's obviously a very polished kind of prospect right now. But I think he would have been a fine pick, but just not a good first-round pick because high school pitchers that get drafted in the first round have around a 10% chance of ever even making it to the MLB. And then a chance of even staying 3 or more years in the MLB is around 5% if you go on saber.com. So, I mean, I hope he pans out, and I hope he becomes a really valuable piece of our organization and a valuable piece to our bullpen or hell, even our starting rotation somewhat soon. But the odds are stacked against it working.
So, do you think that the Phillies reached on this pick?
Yeah, I think there were plenty of college pitchers that could have been drafted, including Bryce Jarvis, who threw a no-hitter at Duke this year. So I think there were some more established options they could have gone with, as opposed to picking a kid that hasn't even touched a college baseball field. I think it's the college pitchers make it around 30% of the time, which is almost 3 times more likely than a high school pitcher in the first round.
Got you.
Yeah,
No, especially when you're throwing a no-hitter in the ACC.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, as we do speak on the ACC, we do shift down to Miami, talking about a former Ruston Knight pitcher, Chris McMahon, who was drafted his senior year, decided to go off to college for a few years to play there, had some pretty good success there as of recently. He was not taken last night. Some mockers did have him in the first round. Harry, what are some of your thoughts on that? Do you think his draft stock has fallen, or maybe he's just going to be picked tonight in the early second round, mid-second round?
I didn't think he was going to get picked first round. I think there was a lot of SEC guys that were ahead of him. And I was surprised that Ciccone went ahead of him. Slade Ciccone was another pitcher at Miami. I'm kind of surprised he went ahead of McMahon. Nobody really had him going ahead of him. But the Baseball America rankings didn't really have McMahon that high. So, I mean, I'm not really that surprised he didn't go first round. But I think he'll be early to mid-second round today. So that goes for him, though.
All right, great. Now we'll definitely be watching. So as we shift gears more, talking about the Phillies, what are some of your thoughts on bringing in a guy like Zach Wheeler? We know that the pitching struggled. A lot of it really wasn't just the starters. A lot of the relievers, a lot of closers really struggled last year. Sir Anthony Dominguez was out for a lot of the year. Hector Neris really came in, tried to pick up that closing role, which middle of the season he seemed like he was good. But this team has a tendency to just fall off as a whole. But starting at the pitchers, what are some of your general thoughts on how last year went for this team? More Jake Arrieta as well, thinking Zach Eflin, possibly Vince Velasquez moving to the bullpen, which we tried to do last year. So that's the first question. Second, how do you think Joe Girardi manages this team differently from a pitcher's perspective and managing them versus Gabe Kapler?
Yeah, I think with Joe Girardi, we'll see more of an old school kind of mindset being taken to baseball, which is a really interesting thing with the Phillies organization, because the minor league system for the Philly organization is moving towards that new age kind of system and development system. Whereas the managing, I think they wanted to play it safe by Philadelphia fans. I don't think they were just, people got mad at Kapler because he did things differently and they didn't give it enough time for it to eventually work out. I thought it would have been fine with him. I think he would have made a fine manager, because managers don't really have much say in today's game anymore. It's more of a front office kind of thing where they want specific guys doing specific things 100% of the time their way because it matches up with a set of data. But the Phillies bullpen definitely sucked last year, and it's a reoccurring theme throughout Phillies history in the past 5 years. We start off with like a great first half, and then the second half of the year isn't so good. So
last month.
And we got screwed last year when Aaron Nola kind of had an off year. He didn't really do too well last year compared to his previous seasons, and I think he'll rebound this year. I think he'll, that just happens to young pitchers sometimes. Sometimes they don't really have a good season, and then in the off season they have to reinvent a few things, and they'll come back a little bit stronger. So I'm hoping for that.
So Harry, if I may ask you, we talked about this a little bit before we started. So baseball was supposed to start around July 4th, July 3rd. That time frame. Blake Snell and Bryce Harper both made comment. Well, Blake Snell started it about that revenue and money and not wanting to take half the pay. So what is your opinion on that? And do you think that shouldn't really matter, or should it be about the game?
I mean, players do have to be paid at the end of the day. It's a contractual agreement between teams and players. I think there needs to be a new collective bargaining agreement between the MLBPA and the MLB. It sucks right now, and it's expiring next year. So this was bound to happen at some point. There was bound to be some kind of a strike. It's just happening now because of the pandemic, and the MLB is finding ways to cut costs at every corner, and that means screwing thousands of people out of jobs in the minor leagues and
That was bad.
all that. That's a whole nother topic, though. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because at first so the MLB agreed to the players' conditions that they would do prorated salaries about 50%.
Mm-hmm.
But then they kind of overreached and said, all right, we want another 33%. So basically it became an 83% pay cut for the players. And the players would be making a guy that was supposed to make $500,000 this year, which is league minimum, would be making around $100,000 to $200,000. And that's something that I don't think they'd be happy about at all.
Well, so you talk about like the minimum. So what about guys like Bryce Harper? Like for me, in my eyes, like Bryce Harper, you got paid a lot of money last year, and you got to think about the Under Armour contract. So what about the guys that actually have more toward their contracts and endorsements? I could see more of like the people that don't have the big name contracts or like the big name deals, but guys like Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts them too. I mean, they're not going to be making as much money. And I think guys with endorsements, it doesn't really hurt as much, but it's kind of selfless for Bryce Harper to be thinking about guys that aren't making, as much as him, and they're making league minimum. League minimum, although it's $500,000, still, like when you cut that down to $100,000, you're screwing a lot of people over. Mm-hmm. And they need to have some kind of system set up that helps players and helps owners, and that's just not happening right now.
So my final question for you is, will we see baseball this year or no?
Yeah, I have no doubt we'll see it, but it might not be what we think it is. I mean, there's probably not going to be any fans or any kind of spectators. It's probably just going to be broadcasted. But I genuinely believe, I mean, Manfred said it yesterday, there will be baseball played at some point. I think what they're going to do right now, though, is they're going to have the season start on July 10th, I think is what I saw. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to try and negotiate a CBA for the Players Association and the MLB as the season progresses on, which I think is what should have happened in the start. They should have just started the season and then negotiated the collective bargaining agreement throughout the season.
Alrighty.
Gotcha. No, definitely some good points there as well. That's going to be something that we'll get to see as they continue between the Players Association and the MLB itself. A lot of the owners, there seems to be some growing disconnect there with a lot of the younger players, especially now. But so one of the questions that I have too is, do you think that some of the players who are making league minimum, who are willing to go out and try to prove themselves as players, do you think this could potentially be an opportunity for some of those younger guys to get out and show what they can do for the organization?
Potentially. I have no idea. Really depends on how the season goes. And I guess if some players step out, I mean, I don't know. It really depends. I feel like it might hurt them too because there's not going to be as many games this year. I think what the amount of games there's going to be this year is around 80 or 90, and then with extended playoffs. So for sure, I could see it going either way.
Gotcha. And so one final question here. Where do you think the Phillies are potentially this year? We know their division's rather tough with the Braves and the defending champion Washington Nationals. Is there a potential for a wild card berth, or are they still a team rebooting?
They're going to finish 500 as they always do. I have no. They're going to lose JT Realmuto at the end of this year. The future is really confusing. When we signed Bryce Harper, I thought it was moving in the right direction. I thought it was kind of interesting because the appeal he has can bring some other good players to the table. We brought in Didi Gregorius, which is another really good, signing. It's just we're spending so much money and we're seeing no results. We're spending.
Right. Now that seems to be a theme with this team so far.
Yeah, we're acting like the
organization, they've been saying they want to spend.
Yeah, no, we're acting like the New York Yankees. And if we try to play like the New York Yankees in the front office, we're going to lose to the Yankees out on the field. It's not that the Phillies are a poor organization. It's just we're spending money on things that we could be allocating better. Like a team like the Athletics has a tenth of the budget of the Yankees and us. And what the hell? They make the playoffs every year. Like, it's frustrating to watch,
Yeah.
Definitely. No. So props to that Moneyball reference there too. Great movie. So Harry, thanks for being on today. We'll touch base with you as we continue through the MLB. Definitely we'll have you on again. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
For sure, man. Thank you.
All right, great. So we are now going to be moving towards some different topics. We hope that you guys enjoyed that segment as well. We'll be doing more guests more often, definitely. And so we are now going to begin talking about the NFL. More specifically, we'll be talking about Cam Newton. Cam Newton is currently a free agent. He is a former MVP. He has went to the Super Bowl one time, has been to the playoffs a few different times. I'm going to bring Gavin right back in, as well as our go-to football and Cowboys correspondent, John Warner. And we are going to be discussing two different topics here with Mr. Warner. We'll be talking about Cam Newton as well as talking about Dak Prescott. So, John, welcome in. How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing great, John.
Doing great. So let's start off with the question. Let's talk about it. Cam Newton. Do you think Cam Newton should be on a team, whether it's a backup role or a starting role? And number two, I mean, what team do you think he'll fit on? Let's start with John. John, you can answer that first.
Gonna be completely honest, I haven't been paying much attention to Cam Newton. I could see him maybe ending up on a team like the Broncos. Maybe starter, backup. Not really. I haven't been paying much attention to the situation.
Got you. So, Gavin, let's get some thoughts on you for Cam Newton.
Well, his best fit just got Phillip Rivers. I think the best fit for Cam Newton would have been the Indianapolis Colts with the offensive line, which he really needs an offensive line. And he has some decent wide receiving core over there and two young running backs that would have helped him out completely. But I also believe that Cam Newton was dealt an unfair hand in Carolina where they just got rid of him. And I don't think that was a little bit – I'm going to say it's not really fair for Cam Newton because over his career, he didn't really have a really great wide receiving core or a great offensive line to really give him the safety he needs and the things, weapons to make go downfield. So when it comes to the Panthers, you had to look at, well, he had Steve Smith on the end of his career. He had Kelvin Benjamin, who wasn't the best. He had Devin Funchess and Greg Olsen, who were, I want to say, maybe his best right behind Steve Smith. So, and then they gave him Christian McCaffrey, which helped him in the run game. But if I had to pick a team for where Cam Newton should have went to, it would have been to the Colts. But if a new team for Cam Newton to go to, I kind of like the Chargers. John said the Broncos, but I like the Chargers for Cam Newton. I think he should have been there before Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert could be the guy that's the understudy that looks and tries to learn off Cam Newton a little bit. But right now, I think he has to accept the backup role because everybody has their guys right now, or you have to wait for an injury.
Gotcha. No, I agree. And so definitely for me, I'm thinking the New England Patriots. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but you think about it, their O-line is a little bit hurt. Their wide receiving core is not great. A mobile quarterback would help. Jarrett Stidham is very unproven. I could see those two competing in camp for it. In my opinion, the best place for Cam Newton would be New England. It'd be ideal if he plays well and cooperates with Belichick. He can get himself a ring too. And it'd be a good replacement for Tom Brady to bring in a mobile quarterback. I'd love to see how that works in Josh McDaniel's system.
I mean, that could totally happen. I do believe that that's a great possibility. Would the league like to see it? Maybe. Let's see who what we've always been saying. Is it Brady or was it Belichick? So this would be a perfect to see, like, hey, we're gonna give you Cam Newton. Let's see if the same thing can happen. But as of right now, there's no talks going on of any team. And I think Cam's just kind of just sitting in the water. Not dead in the water, but just sitting in the water, just waiting for anything.
Do you think he's willing to take a backup role?
I have no idea about that yet. We said the same thing about Carmelo Anthony about coming off the bench. He wouldn't do it, and that's why a lot of teams wouldn't pick him up. So if Cam Newton's willing to take the backup role to, let's say, like a Denver team or or to whatever, he would have to. But if he won't do that, then he'll just sit here and wait till an injury or till next year.
Definitely. So now we're going to shift gears now to our dedicated Cowboys correspondence team. John, getting a lot of love in the comments. We can see it already. We gotta love to see it. Let's talk about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has had quite an interesting first few years to a start. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2016, expected to be Tony Romo's backup potentially to replace him. Tony Romo was hurt. What was that? 4th round?
It was 4th round, not 3rd round.
4th round. That's right. So he's drafted in the 4th round with the intentions to replace Tony Romo eventually. Tony Romo got hurt. Prescott comes in, has Ezekiel Elliott, Des Bryant, a good O-line. They go 13-3. They lose, unfortunately, to the Packers. Not Dak Prescott's fault. They hung 31 points on that team. Following year, they come out, go 9-7. The Eagles take the show. Carson Wentz and the Eagles. The following year, they get Amari Cooper in the middle of the year. They go 10-6. Go to the playoffs. They beat Seattle. They lost a tough one to the Rams. And then this year, expected to be arguably the best team on paper. They go out to a hot 3-0 start. They drop 3 straight after Tyron Smith's injury. A couple other things happen at the end of the year, 8-8. And so, John, I'll ask you this question before we dive into talking about Dak Prescott's contract. What happened to the Cowboys this year?
As I've said before, it's been the coaching. Coaching has been the problem for years.
Definitely no. I mean, Kellen Moore came in this year, the offensive coordinator. I mean, the offensive ranks were great this year. Do you think it was more of a offensive coaching issue or defensive? Now, we do know that there were
easily defensive coaching issue because the
right,
defense would give up early leads in games, and we'd have to try to battle back, and that's ultimately what caused us to lose a majority of games.
Totally. I know you think of the Vikings game and a few others there, you can actually see how the defense really did lose some games. Maybe Dak Prescott does get some unnecessary hate. And I know Gavin and John, you two agree on this pretty well, maybe to a certain extent, maybe not. I know that I strongly disagree with this. Should Dak Prescott be getting paid top 5 quarterback money? Dak Prescott his contract is done. He went out there, he kept his mouth shut last year, respect to that, and now he wants his money. And so when we say he wants his money, we've heard a bunch of rumors. $45 million from people. The franchise tag is worth either 32 or 33. I can't quite recall. But so I'll ask you, John, first, being the Cowboys fan on the show today. Number one, is Dak Prescott the right answer? If so, then you do think he should get an extension. And number two, what type of money should he be getting? Should he be getting top 5, top 10, top 15? Should he be a little bit less selfish so that they can't afford to pay other players? Because they did lose out on Byron Jones because they know they're going to have to sign him. They've already paid Zeke $90 million. They know they got to pay Amari Cooper. They've signed him to an extension. They've signed everyone except for Dak. So what's the holdup?
So I'm going to start out by saying that paying Zeke that much money was a mistake. So, and Dak is obviously a franchise quarterback. So he's proven it throughout his career. I mean, not necessarily this year. He didn't necessarily put up stats at the beginning of games, as you've told me in the past. At games against the Packers where we give up big leads early on. I mean, defenses aren't really playing lockdown at that moment, so he's able to just throw the ball in stat pad. But you have to look at it in his career. He has 14 game-winning drives, eight fourth quarter comebacks. So if you go back and look throughout seasons, you can be able to rely on him in situations. He didn't have any in 2019, which proved to be a problem, as with the 8-8 record. And
yeah, no, definitely. And so it's definitely tricky. So in my opinion, Prescott is a franchise quarterback. His personality is there. He's a good leader. All the elements pretty much do pretty come in to make sense for him to be the franchise quarterback. But here's the thing. If you're surrounded with if it takes so many pieces to surround you to be successful, then you're not worth top 5 QB money. I'd pay you top 10, top 15. I'd pay you $30 million. I'd pay him the franchise tag, in my opinion, not a penny more. Because at that point, you're going to lose out on if Trayvon Diggs ends up being successful, you're going to not be able to afford to extend him. When Leighton Vander Esch is asking for money, if Blake Jarwin breaks out this year, Michael Gallup in a few years, you have to think about this. Like, if he can go out there and prove that without Michael Gallup, without Amari Cooper, without Randall Cobb, without Ezekiel Elliott, that he can win the same way Carson Wentz did the last 4 games this year without his top players, then yes, he's worth top 5 quarterback money because you can afford to allocate more money to him versus having to give it to other skill positions. When all elements aren't perfect for Dak, they lose games. And it's pretty predictable. They won 3 games. They started off 3-0. Congratulations. You beat 3 pretty bad teams, although the Eagles did lose to the Dolphins, but that's a conversation for a different day.
We also lost to the Jets, so.
That is true. So let's talk about when – what was the left tackle? Was it Smith that got hurt? That was out for a few games when you guys went down to 3-3?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so he goes out, and I said, oh, they're losing. Like, they're playing Teddy Bridgewater. No, but they're losing. Or there's a Packers game, too. Like, they're losing. It's pretty predictable, in my opinion. It's interesting. Dak Prescott's done a lot. He's proven he can drop back and throw the ball a bunch of times a game. He has not really proven he can throw a team on his back when they're depleted. In his defense, they've never been depleted. But when the conditions aren't perfect, Prescott struggles. And that's what I don't understand why Prescott thinks he deserves top 5 QB money.
I mean, I feel like, honestly, he's in his own head too much right now.
Could be the agent, too. I mean, the agent usually does have a lot on that. Obviously, they get commissions based on these salaries. They want their quarterbacks to get as much money as possible. Prescott seems like a down-to-earth, nice guy. Maybe he's had enough of Jerry Jones BS without giving him money last season. But remember, if you can throw a team on your back the same way that Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, even Carson Wentz this season have done, Patrick Mahomes even has done that, even though he does have quite some good weapons. If he can throw a team on his back the way that he could have, then he would be able to get this and have more leverage. And so here's what my thoughts are if you were to argue that he never had the opportunity to do that. Well, that's not true. The Cowboys led the league in drops this year, despite having arguably a much better receiving core than the Eagles, who were number 3 in drops. So it's a valid point to say that, they had drop problems, but you also have a top 3 running back in the NFL. Conditions aren't necessarily perfect, but when they had adversity this year, Prescott folded. And that's where, in my opinion, he had an opportunity to prove, this is my franchise. This is what I'm going to do to help them succeed. All you had to do was beat the Eagles. All you had to do is beat the Eagles in Week 16, and you're in the playoffs, and you can see where you go from there. So, I don't know. I mean, what are some of your thoughts on that? Obviously, we've established that Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback, but he's not worth more than $33 million at most.
But I remember you saying that he should take the franchise tag this year and be able to go out and prove what he's worth, and I kind of agree with that because especially if he has 2018 9-7 wasn't necessarily the best year. He needs to be able to, especially coming into with probably one of the best wide receiver cores in the league, having Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and now CeeDee Lamb. This is a year that he should be able to go out and prove himself, prove that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and then after that, be able to take his money.
No, I agree. I mean, and Gavin, I know that you have to get a chance here to speak some of your opinion too. I'll let you go after I speak.
Yeah.
What I really think of when you really break it down, you look at Dak Prescott. He has an opportunity to get $33 million right now. Just take it. Take it. You get CeeDee Lamb, who's arguably the best wide receiver in the class, at least on paper. You have an opportunity to go out with Amari Cooper, who you have a great connection with. Michael Gallup, your O-line is healthy next year. Obviously, you have to replace Travis Frederick. But next year, go out there, go put up another 4,000-yard season and actually win games. And trust me, Jerry Jones will have no problem giving you a hefty payday. It's that simple. So, Gavin, let's get some of your thoughts on this now, too.
So, my thing is this. I don't think Dak Prescott is worth top 10 money, or top 5 money, excuse me. I think he is top 10 money material because Dak Prescott has to show that he could do things without, like Ezekiel Elliott, like you said. And when you look at, like, Dak's – well, first, hold on. Let me just restart that. The thing is with Dak Prescott is that when it comes to big teams, like playoff teams, he doesn't perform. When it comes to, like, the Dolphins and, like, the Jets, even though they lost to the Jets this year, was kind of funny, he doesn't show up or doesn't perform. He doesn't come in big-time moments. So if you want big-time money, you got to come in these big-time moments. You can light up all the bad teams in the NFL you want, but if you can't beat the good teams, such as, when you go in New England and try to beat them, or next year, I think you guys play Baltimore. So for the fact you do,
Yeah, I think it's in Baltimore as well.
so for the fact that you have to show that you can play against teams with great secondaries, and right now Dak Prescott has not shown that. But I will say this: it was not right of Jerry Jones to pay Ezekiel Elliott first. With a running back with 2 years left in this deal, why would you do that? Now,
Gave him too much money as well.
if that's it, Ezekiel Elliott did not even perform that well this year. He came in a little bit heavier, less elusive, and I want to say less focused than normal. Than we normally see Zeke. But Amari Cooper was much needed money, and Dak Prescott is much needed money. But the problem is now is you don't have that much money to pay the guys down the road, including Dak Prescott. I think $44 million is a little. It's funny to me, but I do believe this though. Dak Prescott's worth the money before Jared Goff is though. Even though Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl, but how much was that on the defense and on as a running back?
Todd Gurley.
And when you look at Dak Prescott, and you could be, well, but he did this, and this year. But where did they end up after doing all these things? They went home. They didn't even get a chance to come to the playoff party. And we gotta look at Dak and like, well, why did you miss out? And that's all I gotta say. But Dak Prescott does need to be paid. 33, 45 million? No. Maybe he might be the next Kirk Cousins just in Dallas, for all we know.
I swear if that happens.
All right, great. Now, definitely, I think that we all pretty much agree. One big takeaway, and you know how I feel when it comes to a running back, you really shouldn't pay them so early, even unless they're more of a pass-catching back, and they're not going to take the gritty of it, especially when you had such a replaceable back in Dallas when Prescott, or not Prescott, when Elliott was holding out with Tony Pollard there. So I'm curious, do you think that Dak Prescott's going to hold out if he doesn't get his money, or will he end up conceding, John, I'm talking to you, or would he end up signing that franchise tag?
I don't think Prescott's the kind of person to hold out.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, so that pretty much, we have about 3 minutes left. Some final thoughts from the three of you as far as this topic goes. Let's start with John, going to Gavin, and then myself. So, John, how do you foresee this Dallas situation ending up?
It's honestly, it's just a big mess, honestly.
Big mess?
Definitely.
There is to it.
Gavin?
It happens way too often with players wanting money. I mean, Zeke last year holding out. Like, in that situation, I'm going to be completely honest, you shouldn't have paid him. You should have given Pollard a few weeks to prove what he could do. And then, because Tony Pollard's obviously going to be a good replacement to Zeke if Zeke gets injured or anything. Like, if anything happens to him, you're going to be able to rely on Tony Pollard. So Zeke didn't need that money. You have Andy Dalton as a backup quarterback. You don't really have much of a replacement there.
Definitely. Gavin?
Well, I think here's the thing. If Dak does hold out, I believe he should, because the thing is, Dak Prescott has a little bit of leverage right now. Well, and if you want to take it a step further, Zach and John, we could talk about how, the Ezekiel Elliott, they paid him, and he has a lot of off-the-field issues ever since he's been into the league. And if you want to take it also counter, Dak has been a good boy. And when I mean a good boy, even in 2016 with the whole sticking up with Jerry Jones, I don't know about that too much. But, hey, he has not caused a problem at all. So you got to take that into consideration. But it's not fair for the Jones family to throw analytics and numbers at Dak when it comes to this contract, because that's what they're going to bring into the thing. But I will say this, Dak, if you do hold out, Andy Dalton is behind you, and we don't know what Andy Dalton. We're going to get the good Andy Dalton when they won like 13 games, or we can get the Andy Dalton 2 years ago where they barely won anything, and this year as well. So I don't know how you want to view this whole situation. And, I just think the best thing for Dak Prescott is for the holdout. He has more leverage than what Melvin Gordon did, but he doesn't have much. He doesn't have top 5 level, but he does have top 10 level.
Definitely. So, John, again, thanks for coming on. We're going to be wrapping up the show now. We'll have you on again soon. We'll keep everybody updated as we progress through. Definitely a great show today, Gavin. Nice to be with you again. To our viewers. Go ahead.
I want to say something. To tell someone to shut the heck up because he's speaking, if you don't like to hear that person speak, you don't gotta come. You know he was gonna be on here, and and that person knows what I'm talking about too. I'm sorry, but I had to say that. It
Not a
was
problem. Definitely.
it was a little-
Let's try to keep the comment section as clean as possible. Definitely
yeah,
appreciate that for our viewers.
not needed. That was not needed to come at a certain person because you just don't like them at all. Like, how would I feel if I would come at this person and I know, and he knows what I'm talking about too. We could go through games, and I'm not trying to be negative. I love all the people that watch us, but just to tell someone to shut the F up because you don't like them or speaking, come on now, y'all. Like, especially just one person, he just consistently comes in here and hate. Don't do that. We come in here, we're just trying to have a good time, unite. You know what I mean? Like, that's not acceptable. But go ahead, Star.
Absolutely. Definitely on that point. Let's try to keep the comments as clean as possible so that we can unite and continue the goal of our show. Without further ado, thanks everybody for taking the time today to join the show. We had a pretty good turnout. We hope to continue that moving forward. Tomorrow, Gavin and I will be in person doing a Q&A session. So definitely shoot some questions our way, and we'll definitely feel free to answer them.
Caleb Flynn will be here tomorrow.
That's right. We'll be continuing the GOAT conversation a little bit tomorrow as well. I know we've talked a lot about it yesterday. So if you want to support us, Teespring is always available, Patreon as well. 10% of our money will be going towards a foundation or organization of the viewer's choice. Thanks again, everybody, for joining today, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.
In the comment section. We want to bring people back. We don't want to single people out. That's not cool. I could easily single this person out because I know some things, but I'm not going to do that. I want to be united and be together like we should supposed to be doing.